Hey guys, my name is Pavan. Today I'm going to talk about the PTR patch notes that Blizzard has released for Overwatch and how they made updates to the PTR to make changes to this meta and kind of shake it up. It's been kind of stale lately, with the main perpetrators of that being, Baptiste and Mei. I'm going to talk about all the adjustments in this video. Overall, they've made adjustments to Baptiste, Mei, D.Va, Orisa, Hanzo, and Doomfist, with the biggest significant adjustments being to Baptiste, Mei, and D.Va. So we started with Baptiste. For Baptiste, they have made the following changes. Immortality field maximum duration reduced from 8 to 5 seconds. Immortality field cooldown increased from 20 to 25 seconds. Amplification matrix ultimate cost increased by 20%. So as you can see, they made two big adjustments to immortality field. They've pretty much nerfed it, which I think is great, because the immortality field, I think, is one of those abilities that isn't as interactive in the game. All it really does is it kind of delays the inevitable, meaning it slows down the gameplay, which means it's not really great for skilled players. How many times have you pulled out a blade? You feel like most of the time you're just spending your time first killing the lamp, so then you can kill the rest, the opposing team. Same thing goes, if you're Winston and you're diving in, that lamp cooldown is less, and the gameplay speeds up, which I think is good from not just a perspective of spectating, maybe, your favorite streamer on Twitch, but obviously also in terms of gameplay, because abilities like Immortality Field, I feel like, aren't great for the game, just like too many stuns aren't great for the game, because it takes away the raw meaning of an FPS game, which at the end of the day is skill. And then the next one is the Amplification Matrix. Ultimate cost is increased by 20%. So this means, obviously it's going to be slightly slower to get your ult with Baptiste. I still think the ult won't be that much of a problem. And if you're spamming your right click heals into your teammates, I don't think it's going to be too hard to get that ult back up and running. So the biggest nerf to Baptiste is just the Immortality field, which personally I'm fine with, because it doesn't really impact his healing. He's still able to heal at a very high level. He's still a very beginner friendly character to pick up if you're trying to get into the healing category. It's just, something like an Immortality field is nerfed now, which is better overall for gameplay. Alright guys, so the next PTR change comes to Mei, whose endothermic blaster slowing effect now reduces enemy movement speed from 20 to 70%, which is down from 30 to 90%, and the slowing effect duration is reduced from 1.5 to 1 second. So now I think this is definitely a step in the right direction. I think, anyone you talk to on any rank, I think, was starting to talk about how Mei was almost becoming, an auto pick in many games throughout competitive, and how her pick rate is, relatively high. But I definitely think, just in terms of gameplay wise, this is a step in the right direction, especially, if you're a player who loves playing Genji, or Winston, or D.Va, or Hammond, any character that really likes to kind of dive into the back of the enemy line. I know I play a decent amount of Genji, and I think one of the most common things is just, her ability to freeze you is a bit too overpowered. I felt like I could just be in the back line for 2 seconds, and before you know it, I'm having trouble trying to escape. I've also played a fair bit of Hammond in the past couple months, and I definitely felt like her endothermic blaster, all she had to do was 1 or 2 swipes with that endothermic blaster from side to side, and I could have a lot of momentum as Hammond and I would still get slowed down. It just felt like the blaster was a bit too overpowered, and it slowed you down a little bit too much. And I think the fact that they're nerfing that ability a little bit more means that we're going to be able to play a little more of characters that like to dive into the back line without having to pay such a hefty consequence every time. And hopefully Mei is still a viable character, because Mei is one of those characters where she's either very effective or she's completely useless in the meta. That's pretty much how she's always been. The next change comes to D.Va, whose boosters cooldown are decreased from 5 to 3 seconds. So this is a terrific change, I think, because D.Va's been kind of laying in the bushes for a couple seasons now. this is a good change because it unlocks more of D.Va's ability to kind of play as a dive hero and, you know, kind of go in and out of the back line of the opposing team. And I think it definitely also helps some of the lower ranked players, because I think one of the most common themes in lower ranked play is a D.Va that just kind of dives mindlessly. So maybe it kind of helps them because, you know, they're able to kind of get their cooldown reset, so maybe they can dive away. But I definitely think this is a great overall change because they'll be able to take advantage of more mobility. And as we all know, mobility in Overwatch is pretty much the cream of the crop, and, you know, really helps a lot. You know, that's why Winston through all these seasons still gets a lot of play. And, you know, hopefully they can kind of get D.Va to that point where, you know, it's a character that isn't overpowered but isn't too underpowered and is just perfectly balanced. Maybe this is kind of starting to take a step in the right direction, where instead of tinkering too much with their damage output, they're tinkering more with their mobility, which kind of ends up which is something that is in the control of the player, and depending on his or her skill, they'll be able to take advantage of it. So this is a good change. Alright, so the next change comes to Orisa, whose fortified damage reduction reduced from 50 to 40%. So it's a slight nerf. I don't think it's a big deal at the end of the day. I think Orisa is kind of a I hate to kind of use the term, but she's just kind of a brain dead character that's kind of just, you know, dominated the meta for the past couple seasons. Her halt ability is just, you know, massively overpowered, I think. I think it's, and the reason why I think it's massively overpowered is I think its cooldown is too low, it's too easy to use, and it's too easy to execute. There's no skill level that is required to use it, and there's so many endless chances to use it. And when you combine that with its power, when it's used in conjunction with the abilities of other teammates, like for example when you use halt with Roadhog, when you use halt with Mei, I just think Orisa is in a spot where she just kind of becomes kind of the go-to main tank in the game. And again, I always like to talk about how I think skill should be rewarded, and I don't think Orisa has that much kind of a skill gap in her, and to reward her with so many strong abilities, especially when you look at the main tank that rivals her, like Reinhardt, who does require that more of that skill and more of that game sense when you're kind of switching between your hammer and your shield and you're trying to bait out the other Reinhardt's Earth Shatter. I think that is way more kind of an interesting gaming mechanic than simply having an Orisa versus Orisa, halt versus halt, and, you know, you have Orisa halting everyone into the air, and Roadhog is just hooking into the halt and getting a random target pretty easily. I just feel like, see, these are the type of abilities that I think kill the game. Abilities that are too easy to execute, but at the same time are way too powerful. I just don't think there's a place in the game for that type of stuff. Hopefully there's a couple more nerfs to Orisa, so that way, you know, people are able to take advantage of her abilities through game sense and skill, rather than just spamming halt everywhere and hoping something happens, and which most of the time it does. So I think this is a good nerf to her. I personally think there should be more, and hopefully there is more in the future. Now the next character to get a nerf is Hanzo, who, you know, his primary fire maximum projectile speed was reduced from 125 to 110. So essentially, you know, when you're primary firing your arrow, it's just gonna go a lot slower. It is a nerf. Is it a significant nerf? I don't really think so, because at the end of the day, if you're being dived on by a Winston or a D.Va, having an arrow that's 15 meters per second slower in terms of projectile speed, that's not going to make a big difference. Same thing in close range battles, like it doesn't make a big difference. It's still, when you're close range 1v1 fighting, even a DPS character, you're still essentially going to be shooting a hit scan weapon. That arrow is still going to be hit scan. It's not going to be a projectile, you know. But at the same time, where it does make a difference is long range battles. Now, if you're doing a long range battle again against a tank or a McCree, it's not that big a deal, because all you have to do is just, you know, it's a slight adjustment, right? But I think the biggest difference is probably against Pharah, who, you know, when she's in the air, I think you essentially, ideally, would want someone like a McCree who has a hit scan. Now, you know, Hanzo's arrow is going to be significantly slower, so shooting Pharah out of the air is going to be a lot tougher. I don't think it makes a big difference against a Widowmaker long range battle. I think that's going to still be relatively simple, because Widow when she's scoped is standing still, so all you have to do is just aim and just kind of let it go. I think Hanzo 1v1 battles are going to be much more dreadful to watch, especially at lower ranks, because everyone's, I think, is just going to be missing a lot more. But other than that, I don't think the change to Hanzo is that bad, and I kind of respect that. I know a lot of people kind of, you know, poo-poo on Hanzo, but at the same time, you know, if you take out his scatter ability, it comes down to kind of being a skill character, because it comes down to knowing the projectile speed and having kind of a feel for his weapon so you can do damage with it. You know, I'll take Hanzo's rapid fire arrow ability all day over Orisa's halt, because the rapid fire ability still requires you to aim a little, whereas Orisa's halt, you're just kind of throwing it in there, and most of the time, even if you're doing it without any reason, you're getting benefits out of it. And then the last character to get nerfed is Doomfist, whose uppercut recovery time has been increased from 0.2 to 0.5 seconds. It just feels like Doomfist gets regularly nerfed because, you know, of the complaints from the community. But I think at that, again, this is another nerf that is going to just slow down the pace of Doomfist a little bit, and it's going to make it easier for characters like Ana, Soldier, and Zenyatta to kind of not be easy kills, because as soon as typically right now what you do is you ground slam into uppercut. So I'm assuming recovery time from being increased means that as soon as you ground slam, there is like a longer delay before you can uppercut, which means now all of a sudden Soldier and Zenyatta and Ana and characters like that have a longer time frame to kind of move around and jump around a bit. So now when you uppercut them into the air, maybe they're not as close to you, meaning that you can't just easily primary fire into them and confirm an easy kill. So essentially, you have to understand any change that Blizzard makes to Doomfist is either going to make him slower, it's going to make him a little bit harder to confirm kills with, because like I don't remember the last time where, you know, they made minor changes to him to make him more powerful. I'm not saying he needs it, but that's just the way it is. I think this is a change that is going to probably tilt Chipsa a little more. But other than that, that's a nerf to Doomfist, and that pretty much wraps up the PTR updates for this round. I think overall, I think it's good for the meta, most of it. I like Doomfist as a character, but it's definitely tilting at times when, you know, you're trying to do something and before you know it, you're just being fisted into the air, and, you know, you're stunned and you can't do what you want to do. Hanzo's nerf isn't that aggressive, which I'm fine with. I think Orisa and D.Va, I think Orisa's nerf is a step in the right direction. I think there should be more to come. D.Va's buff is a very good step in the right direction, because you're playing around with something that is skill oriented instead of just damage oriented, where you're just clicking a primary fire. So I like that. I think the nerf to Mei is a very good step in the right direction, because I think it was just too OP, and she's still very good. She's still in a very good spot, guys, because she still has multi-freeze. So, you know, if you combine that with halt, and, you know, you essentially have Mei ult at your disposal anytime you want it. And I think the Baptiste nerf is also very good, because it kind of speeds up the play and the pace of the game, which I think is good, not just if you're playing as a casual player or as a competitive player, but also if you're watching the games on Twitch, or if you're watching Overwatch League, for example. I think these are good changes that bring the game into a good direction. They're small changes, they're minor changes, but I think they're all changes that take a step in the right direction, and hopefully we can get to a meta where, you know, less people complain about it. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Remember, guys, I stream on Twitch regularly, so you can catch me on there. What do you guys think of this PTR nerfs and buffs? Let me know in the comment section below. Leave a like, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.
Perfect.